Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you very much, Ali, for the kind introduction. Welcome everyone to this mild webinar on the 5 leadership sins of Middle East managers. My name, as mentioned, is Atif Khan, and I look forward to learning from you. My email address is given should you wish to get in touch with me after the session with questions or comments. The ideas which I will be sharing today are based on my research and leadership development experiences, as well as the observations of people who I have spoken with. These ideas represent collective opinions. However, each leadership and managerial journey is unique. So as Ali said, please do share your thoughts and experiences with us during this webinar, especially at the end. Our discussion will be divided into the 5 major sins. Now, although parallels can be made between the religious perspectives of behavior, which will be discussed, let me please emphasize that when we talk about sins, we are looking at them from strictly a leadership perspective. I will start then with the first leadership sin, which is waiting for the thinking to be done for them. Which means that some individuals create silence barriers between themselves and the intellectual strategizing being done at their organizations. They neglect to take opportunities to speak up and to be heard. They underestimate or undersell their knowledge and abilities, and they pigeonhole themselves to the minimum thinking and acting needed to continue receiving a paycheck. An example of such a person could be that of one who is close to customers but who does not share timely and important information about how the customer needs could be better met. Another could be of the one who assumes that since his manager knows better, it would not be wise to question his wisdom in executing, say, a flawed IT implementation plan. And a final example is of an employee who sees the organization making mistakes, losing money or resources, including human resources, but who does not act based on the belief that somehow his job starts only when he receives instructions. Such people have defined boundaries which constrain them tightly. Some are self-imposed, while others are dictated by organizational cultures and by dictatorial supervisors. Whatever the source, and let us keep in mind that sometimes it is easier to blame external factors than it is to blame oneself. In such situations, everyone loses, and it becomes a management and a leadership sin. Now, how is this a sin? It is one because the organization, team members, customers, as well as the person who waits for the thinking to be done suffer. I will tell you 3 ways how. First, as a leader, it is your duty to capitalize on all resources to help achieve the collective vision. When you fail to make use of the knowledge, experiences, and skills of all team members, you fail to do the best in the most efficient manner for the collective welfare of your team. Poor overall organizational results are going to transform into lost monetary and non-monetary rewards for all concerned, which is a grand leadership failure. Second, such a situation where employees are powering their limbs only is a disaster for an organization, because ownership of it is constantly being delegated upwards. Can you think of a genuine leader who does not take or inspire ownership? Naturally, the damage to the organization's leadership abilities in being customer responsive and innovative is incredible. Third, when you place capable potential leaders in such intellectually claustrophobic conditions, they feel frustrated because they're not being listened to or appreciated for their ideas. You thus effectively block the pipeline for future leaders and damage your credibility as a people developer, which is an essential leadership skill. You also create pockets of resistance within your own team. Would you as a leader want to fight for your ranks or within your ranks? If you see this happening around you or within you, the first thing to do is to realize that the onus for action with the aim of improvement and success lies on each of us. This is a responsibility which must not be forgotten. It is also, as a leader, your duty to nurture the cerebral growth of your team members. As a leader, you are to be judged by what you pay forward in terms of building the leadership acumen of your peers and subordinates. It is also your responsibility to institutionalize knowledge as well as build a culture of innovative, continuous improvement and action for change. As market conditions constantly change, a proactive approach is necessary to prepare those around you so that they are adequately equipped for different looking tomorrows. Remember that by volunteering to take actions, you are building not only your leadership profile and career, but also those of the ones who are connected to you and rely on you for moving forward. Will you face resistance in doing so, particularly from, say, an adversarial supervisor who might feel that you are encroaching on his rights and making him look weak? Possibly yes, but it depends on how you present your knowledge and abilities, as food for decision making or as an abrupt challenge. Choose a humble information feeding and aiding approach while still letting the big man up above decide, and you might feel that barriers come down and your supervisor starts to rely on you more and more to help him decide. Now, the second sin is living with a sense of entitlement, which is a two-tiered approach that thrives on class structure. It assumes that by birth you are entitled to special privileges which you can bring to and throw around at the workplace and which others are not allowed to enjoy. So if you explicitly or implicitly hear someone saying that I ought to be treated above the rest instead of with equity and equality only because I am a national of a certain country or a member of a certain family, you will find that person living with a destructive sense of entitlement. Such people will not wait in line. They will not follow national rules. They will not abide by the organizational values and code of conduct. And they will mistreat others shamelessly because they think they can get away with it. Needless to say, they make very poor team members and worse leaders. A person living with a sense of entitlement is great at sucking the motivation out of his or her team members, while others work harder and faster. Such an individual mismanages, detracts, and disengages his workforce. He has the power to deliver scope creep in generous volumes. His ego is often and easily bruised, and he lacks the emotional intelligence to manage objectively, thus causing significant damage to careers and organizational goals. Compare this to a leader who encourages and places himself as an equal before others, someone who presents himself as a role model before verbally asking others to abide by certain rules. The sharp contrast makes this leadership sin obvious. As countries and organizations move towards localization, they need to review their stated and practiced policies to create a level playing field for nationals and expatriates, especially in terms of accountability. Privileges and protection for locals need to be replaced with developmental opportunities and equal standards of performance. Local role models who compete in the workplace based on their performance and regardless of their national origin need to be encouraged and promoted in greater numbers. If you ever find yourself seeking entitlement as a national or as a member of a tribe or family, remember that with localization programs, the job market is becoming even more and more open. Competition from the many locals coming into the market with exceptional credentials is increasing day by day. Thus, the cushion that may have been available before might not be there tomorrow. To prepare for a bright leadership future, you need to build on your competencies, work towards finding a competitive niche in the job market, and learn how to sell your services in a manner that focuses on value addition for others and not on just your nationality or last name. Remember, great leaders sell their personal services best. So start by asking yourself, what can I do for an employer and for others which I would be best at? And build your personal leadership brand from there. Failure to draw the line in relationships, personal versus professional, is the third sin we will talk about. Failure to draw the line means not being able to differentiate between what is personal and what is professional. Whether this stems from an interpretation of tribal culture or from a fear from which security in numbers is sought, this subjectivity in place of objectivity is hazardous for personal leadership branding as well as for the greater good of organizations and teams. Examples include filling the ranks in your organization with friends and family while ignoring merit, having a different set of procedures and rules for those who you know and for those you don't, granting more to a specific group and less to others simply because you have personal ties outside of work which you are unable to keep outside, and not having the inner strength to say no to special requests. Another common example is illogically distributing formal and informal power in your team because one lacks the ability to assess competencies and instead uses perceived loyalties as a substitute when planning how to get work done. When the line between personal and professional goes hazy, chaos in the organization begins to grow. The casualties are the collective rights of employees. They start losing their rights to promotions, compensation, career development, respect, visibility, and meaningful work. This deprivation does not come and go silently. Affected people react, and they do so loudly, whether you hear them or not. The use of back-channel dealing perpetuates. The grapevine strengthens and starts carrying adverse power. A transactional leadership and management style comes into favor. At times, these transactions are legal, and at others, not so much. Informal power groups emerge, and the organization becomes fractured along many lines. Who as a leader is left to think about the organization and its customers when everyone is guarding their own fort? What needs to be done is simple and clear. Every relationship and every matter needs to be treated on its own merit. For example, you can ask yourself for every demand, would I act in the same manner if this were a request from someone I did not know? In maintaining perceived and actual objectivity lie great leadership advantages. Let me explain your own interest in keeping personal relationships separate. A former boss of mine used to say that it is those with illegitimate requests who most need to look for personal favors. Would you want to be considered and known as a person who is easiest to use for getting illegitimate favors granted? Would you then be taken as a genuine leader? I doubt so. When we bow before the wishes of someone who is asking us to do something wrong, we are taking a direct hit on our credibility, even if that request is coming from a superior. Sometimes we assume that by going out of the way for someone is to help a friend or a follower. But would a true friend or follower ask you to do something that is not in your interest? I don't think so. So when such a request comes up again, remind yourself that your dignity as a leader lies in saying no to that which will help neither your own self nor your own organization. At the end, you will be respected more for being a professional and a leader than for being an easy pushover. The organizational and team interest in keeping personal and professional separate is very simple. A culture of merit promotes clear decision-making based on rigorous analysis. Implementation is easier when personal relationships are not at stake, and accountability is more thoroughly ensured, thus keeping efforts and results on track. In the list of sins, at number 4 is inadequate branding, promotion, and development of local leadership role models at all levels of organizations. It means that a mindset exists somewhere in some organizations which sees leadership as being positional. So only those with high ranking titles are assumed to be leaders, and the rest are designated as followers. This bipolar classification keeps necks craned upwards in search of leadership. What happens when a culture of looking up takes root? Resources get directed to the spot in the sunlight. That is the lucky few at the top. Denied by this approach then are countless opportunities to see our peers and subordinates as current and future leaders. Examples of such behavior include prohibiting mid and junior career individuals leadership development opportunities by limiting their professional development. It could include relegating them and their opinions to the back burner while defining leaders by name. Another example is not celebrating the achievements of junior staff members or failing to praise them in public. So any thank you or well done note that was not shared or a public praise opportunity that was missed was a leadership branding, promotion, and development opportunity denied. The disasters such behaviors can bring on include immediate low morale, lack of initiative, clogged succession planning pipelines, silo mentalities, power cravings, and frustrated employees. The right thing to do is to encourage leadership behavior wherever you see it by showering it with resources and encouragement. Anytime you witness colleagues going out of their way to help others, think about what you can do to facilitate the process. Ask yourself, can I lend moral support? Can I smoothen official processes? Can I use my informal network to get quicker approvals? Can I find and share relevant information? Can I tell others what a great job is being done? And can I refrain from discouraging the leadership behavior through hurtful communication or power plays? The final sin for today, and maybe the biggest one in my opinion, is not maintaining constancy and consistency in providing value to others. To me personally, the core of leadership is providing selfless value to others in a constant and consistent manner, and one of the biggest leadership sins I see is in living a life focused just on making a living. To be a leader, you need to go beyond what your job description says. You do your job for yourself, for your family. So stopping there is a terrible sin. Leadership at and outside the workplace is about focusing on others for their benefit, not yours. So as an example, a person who excels at being, say, a great product manager or a master marketing manager will be remembered for doing a good job, but may also quickly be forgotten. However, someone who fulfilled the requirements of his job description, but also coached others, guided others, stood up for others, shared his knowledge and expertise when he or she was not required to or paid to, will be remembered and cherished as a leader. How can you avoid this critical sin and be seen and remembered as a leader? Think of at least one way by which you aim to constantly and consistently provide value to others. Write it out as a statement, such as, even though I'm not paid to, I will constantly and consistently coach my peers to help them achieve their educational and career goals. Another example is, I will develop an internal web portal for expatriates, even though I'm not required to, so that current and future employees can remain well connected and up to date to maintain comfortable legal residence in my country. And the final example is, I will collaborate with others and create an employee welfare fund so that any fellow employee who is in financial need can be helped in time. These are obviously not the only ways. Take some time out of your personal rat race and think about the mark you want to make on your organization and on others before you leave your organization and before you leave this world. There is so much hunger around you at and outside your workplace. Hunger for knowledge, respect, appreciation, support, resources, and even the basic necessities of life. You are lucky to have more to give than you need. There is so much you can do for others using your own God-gifted strengths. Will you then decide to provide value to others constantly and consistently with unitary focus? At the end of the day, leadership at its heart is a decision that we make for others and then stand by. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Atif Khan. Folks, if you have any questions, there are two options. Either you could raise your hand, I'll be able to give you an opportunity to speak to the speaker, or you could put your questions in the chat box and I will read them over on your behalf. I see there are questions already posted in the box. Let me read them over. There is one interesting one. It's on sin number 1, on thinking. You spoke about defined boundaries for those who don't think. Could you kindly explain it or elaborate it? What are those boundaries again?
Okay, think of the boundaries as an invisible line inside your head, which keeps you constrained to certain topics and certain issues over which you put in your mental and emotional energies. There are some things that you think about there are others you don't think about. The difference is whether those things are within the line that you've defined or not. Now you can move the line at any time. You can keep it as broad or as narrow as you want it to be. But the key message that I'm trying to deliver is keep the line, keep the boundaries as far wide as possible and include others in them. That is what leadership is about.
Okay, thank you. Let me move to Brother Tahir Al-Dabakh. Brother Tahir Al-Dabakh, you had raised your hand. I've just unmuted you. Can you hear us? Brother Tahir? Hello? Brother Tahir, would you like to speak to the speaker? Or okay, I think you have posted your question in the chat box also, so let me read it over. Why we have this sense of entitlement? How can we avoid it?
Okay, as I said, the sense of entitlement is most easily replaced and best replaced by a sense of service. So if you think about how you can be of service to others, you'll automatically be replacing it with, you'll be replacing the sense of entitlement with a sense of service and duty to others, which is at the heart and core of leadership.
Okay, all right. Let me move to Dr. Muhammad Awais. Dr. Muhammad Awais, would you like to speak up, or you want me to ask the question? I think you've also posted the question in the chat box. I think he wants me to read it over. Okay, Dr. Muhammad Awais, you mentioned that the question you raised, sir, to Mr. Atif Khan. Mr. Atif Khan, you said the sin number 2, to sell yourself. To whom?
Okay, you sell yourself to others. You sell yourself to humanity. You sell yourself as a facilitator who is there to alleviate their problems. Now, leadership is, it's not something that you can snatch from others. Leadership is something which others give to you, bestow upon you. You need to work hard to earn and deserve this title.
Okay, another interesting one. In your view, what are the major causes of these sins? Is it cultural norm, it's a narrowed vision, or some complex of, or a sense of inferiority, a lack of security to empower others? What are the major reasons?
I think the biggest reason is that we fail to decide on the way and the manner by which we intend to be of value to others. We fail to find that unitary focus. We don't make that decision. We go through life. We're too busy living life instead of being focused about what life is, and that is being of service to others.
Okay, I think there's a supplementary from Amar Gadala. Wrote, I think most of the sins are cultural related. To be specific, most are relevant to ethics and values. I think it's rather a comment. Would you like to comment on this, Mr. Atif?
Yes, ethics, absolutely. I completely agree with the gentleman. Ethics is it's a very important common denominator, as has been rightly pointed out. Thank you for that comment.
Okay, oh, this is interesting. Some argue in this part of the world that inbreeding via nepotism reference secures more loyal employees who are easily manageable in our culture norms than hiring totally strangers. What would you advise to those leaders who have successfully built small medium enterprises through this practice, and they are big advocates of this notion?
Okay, what I would say is that the most important thing is whether merit is maintained or not. And if you have your eye on merit at all times, I think you're doing the most important thing.
Okay, that's brief. Let me go to Engineer Sohabi Baturji. Engineer, would you like to speak, or can you hear us?
Yeah. How can I speak?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Could you please introduce yourself and ask the question?
Yeah. I am Sohabi Baturji. I'm the president of Saudi German Hospital Group. In a large organization for SINDM, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In a large organization such as ours with 5,000 people, for SIN number 4, I find it very hard, even though we try very hard to take that branding and that the recognition of those at lower categories, but it's a hard exercise. It's hard sometimes for us to recognize those several layers below the senior management. How can I is there a tool or a way to recognize those who are at least 2 or 3 layers below the top leadership?
That's a wonderful question. I think I would not recommend a tool, because when you're dealing with human beings, tools can very easily be picked up as being very artificial. So my advice to you would be to move around, talk to people, communicate with them, take genuine interest in them, in their lives. I think that's the best possible thing that you can do.
How can you do that with 10 hospitals around the Middle East? It's hell of a job.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Managing human beings is a very tough job. It's tough, but at the same time, it's very enjoyable. And I think if you enjoy the process of meeting with people, people will see that. People will see you making an honest effort when it comes to reaching out to them. And that by itself will be very satisfying for them.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I really, this is the first time I attend such an event, and I really appreciate that, because in the past 1 week for SIN number 5, not maintaining constant and consistent, not in providing value for others. The past 2 weeks I have received, because I'm accessible to all our staff, all those 500 staff, 5,000 staffs, by email and even by phone. And the last 2 weeks, I received 2 requests from 2 staff. One of them was a victim of some loan sharks, and another one who wanted to send his son to Poland. And his son is in Poland, and he was stuck there for a school fee. And I was really very, very unhappy, because as an organization I couldn't help them. But today you and your webinar helped me to say, no, I have to innovate, and I'm going to create a fund for those who are stuck in similar to those cases, those 2 situations. So I took this chance to tell you that I appreciate this webinar, and I'm going to make it mandatory for our seniors and even several layers to attend this webinar from now on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Engineer Sohabi Baturji. And just to add and supplement my own comment, sir, I remember one of the cases where one of the presidents of Unilever, Ms. Musharraf Hai, I believe in Pakistan, she used to interact with more than thousands of employees every week via webcam, like a video conference, which was interactive, in which she appeared so they could see her on projection screens all over the country, nationwide, and she used to take questions live up there. So, I mean, that is another way of absolutely the communicating, you know, from top to the bottom level. So, so let us
be open for
yeah, so let me move to another question. Sir, okay, there's a interesting one. Isn't it a paradox that leaders are not thinking and considered a sin? How come they are even considered leaders?
Yes, yes, I completely agree. People who do not think on their own feet seldom make very good leaders. I completely agree.
Okay. Mr. Atif, there are a few comments and some people are asking, can you refer any books on the subject as well? Or maybe post-webinar we can share some links for reading materials to them?
I would be more than happy to share some material after the webinar, but my advice to you would be, before you start reading books or alongside the process of reading books, please try and read yourself, because you can find inspiration from others, but a leadership journey is always a very personal journey. So try and understand what your motivations are, what your strengths are, what your aims are, and try and write them down, because that will really help you crystallize your ideas.
Well, that is a very interesting thing you mentioned, read yourself. Could you tell us a bit about what is sort of the best practice to read ourselves, like even writing journals daily, you know, any best practices that you can recommend?
Yes, well, some good questions to ask yourself are, well, I'll give you one example. Ask yourself, if you had all the money in the world, if money was no object, what would you do for a living? And how would that make the world a better place? So that's one very good question to start the thinking process with.
Okay, all right.
Another question to ask yourself could be, say 100 years have passed and someone mentions your name. How would you want them to talk about yourself? What would you want them to mention as your biggest achievements in life? So these are two questions as examples which can help you read yourself.
Okay, fair enough. We have another question, raised hand. Brother Shoaib Akhtar, you've raised your hand, sir. I've just unmuted you. Would you like to introduce yourself and speak to the speaker?
Yes, Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Shoaib Akhtar. I'm working for Concern Worldwide Pakistan in the HR department. My question is, when one sees or when we observe such things happening in the organization, how should we react?
You mean as an HR?
Okay, can you? Yes, could you share
not as an HR, but as an employee. Yeah, as an employee, if you see such things happening within the organization or by the leadership, how should we react? I mean, should we, because for me, I'm totally convinced with the school of thought that bosses are not always right. So how we react in such situations when we see such things happening to us or to our colleagues in the organization?
Okay, Shoaib, Mr. Shoaib, can you give us a specific example of a situation for which you would like an answer?
For example, if I take Sin 5, right? Mm-hmm. If I observe that leadership is not being consistent or constant in few of the disciplines in HR, then and I'm noticing these things, and few other of my colleagues are noticing the same situation. So what should we do in such case, in such situation?
Okay, Well, you can inspire leadership, and you can inspire leadership by being an excellent leader yourself. So start by becoming a better leader, and the positive energy that you send out will be well received around you.
Okay, Atif sir, thank you very much. Is there any possibility that you can share these slides with us?
Yes, yes, we will be, in fact, Shoaib, uploading these soft copy of the slides on our community. Even we are recording this webinar, so you all will be able to see the recorded version and be able to download the files from our website. I shall intimate and share the link in a couple of days once the knowledge pack is completely uploaded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shoaib, for your questions. We have another question in the chat box by a brother Muhammad Hablas, who's asked, regarding sin number 3, perception of the followers about the leader decisions go mostly towards serving personal aspect. How we can avoid this? This is from Dr. Muhammad Hablas.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry, Ali.
The question is, it's about sin number 3, perception of the followers about the leader's decisions go mostly towards serving personal aspects, maybe personal interests. How can we avoid this?
Okay. Well, if you're the leader and if people around you feel that you're making decisions which serve your own personal interests, I think the best thing that you can do is to involve them in the decision-making process and place a lot of emphasis on communicating the reasons why decisions are being made. I think many people fall short when it comes to communicating what's in their minds with others. They automatically assume that people have the ability to read what they're thinking and to see through them and understand that maybe their motivations are perfectly pure. But you need to put in the extra effort to communicate what you're thinking, what your motivations are, what your limitations are to everyone concerned, not just once, but on an ongoing basis.
Okay. So let me move to another question, a supplementary from Brother Tahir, who wrote, I feel that I'm not consistent in providing value. Sin number 5. How can I measure that? How can I improve?
Okay. As I said, make your focus explicit. Write it down. Share it with others. When you start sharing your decision with others, that by itself brings in a sense of accountability. So if you, for example, tell everyone that from now on, I'll use the example that I used before, I'll start an employee welfare fund. If you keep this to yourself, chances are you might not be very consistent when it comes to moving towards this goal. But if you tell everyone around you that this is what I stand for, this is what I aim to do, social pressure, positive social pressure is going to help you be more constant and consistent as a leader.
Okay. Another question from Brother Muhammad Al-Fawli. By nature, there are some person did not want to guide or led by others. In this case, what is the best way to deal with them?
Okay, so what is the best way to deal with someone who's not willing to share information?
Yeah, who's not willing to guide others or even neither led by others.
Okay. Well, people who are not willing to guide others or people who are not willing to share information with others, in my experiences, such people feel insecure. They feel that information is a source of power. And I think the best way to deal with insecurities is to give the other person a feeling of security, to appreciate them more, to listen to what they have to say and to recognize them in public. Once you start addressing the insecurities that they have, you're going to find that they're going to become more comfortable with you, and they're going to become more comfortable with themselves, and they're going to open up more with you.
Okay. So I guess, sir, that sort of brings us towards the end of the webinar. With this, I would like to take an opportunity to thank you, Mr. Atif Khan, for your time and for sharing their valuable experience with our participants. And all of those who participated in this webinar, we really appreciate, and thank you very much for making it quite an interactive experience for all of us. Once again, Mr. Atif Khan, thank you indeed. And folks, we are recording this webinar, as I mentioned earlier. We will be uploading and sharing the link with you all. So stay tuned with us. And Mr. Atif Khan, would you like to say anything as concluding remarks?
Yes, let me thank you, Ali, for moderating this webinar. Let me thank Mail for giving me the opportunity to share my ideas. And thank you everyone for being a wonderful, wonderful and a very intelligent audience. I leave you with my email address, which is given on the slides. Please stay in touch and let me know if you have any questions at any point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And folks, just to quickly share with you how to access the archives of our webinars and to interact with various people on our website, you can always visit our community, which is mentioned here, community.mile.org. Now this is a recently launched community of Mile, where we are actually seeing the members are increasing every day. And there is a webinar section which will give you a chance to sign up for the new webinars which are upcoming and being announced. And then we have a section for archived webinars, which has the YouTube, the PowerPoint, and even the MP3 versions, which are now being in the process of being uploaded by our team. So you have a chance to actually access numerous webinars. We have these categories: communication, corporate governance. So you see I mean, we have pretty much about more than around a dozen webinars already uploaded, and we are in the process of actually populating the content on it. And if you can join the communities to even interact with our subject experts, for example, in the emotional intelligence, we have Mr. Andy Smith, who is available, to interact with you, and you can actually post your questions, discuss with him, and Andy will be able to share his thoughts with you and give answers. Andy is also giving a free book on 55 ways to improve your emotional intelligence to the first 100 members. Already about 30 plus members have joined his community. And then we have Mr. Roger Harrop, who's managing a community of high-performing businesses. Now, Roger has been ranked in one of the top 10 speakers of the world, and he has coached more than 10,000 senior leadership people, and is a co-author and an international speaker. So Roger is actually managing this community on his own, called High Performing Businesses. And then we have Mr. Bill Corner, who's an ex-White House correspondent. He is managing a community of media and communications, and Bill is agreed to spend one-on-one for 20 minutes. He will pick randomly some of his members, first top 100 members, so you can interact with them. So it's a good chance for you to sign up, and it's free right now, but you have to become the member. So please feel free to sign up and join our community, which is growing every day, and hopefully it's going to be a good interactive experience for you all. With that, I'm going to